We have an important update to a story we've been following for years. Investigators trying to unravel the mystery of what happened to Marina Ramos.
A 30-year-old homicide cold case turns into a search for two missing women.
I doubt that she has been gone for 30-some years, you know. It's crazy. It's something that I don't know, you can't find a word for it. It's like, how, you know? Why?
Our aim is to find those two young women. I won't stop. Like you said, I need to get creative, so I have to think outside the box.
After identifying Marina, investigators discovered in the last few years this wasn't just a murder, but also a missing persons case. Marina's family asking, where are her two little girls? We promised to cover any updates here on Arizona Crime Uncovered, and just months later, we have one. I sat down with the investigator working this case as she details new leads she's following and images they are putting out with these developments. How long have you been working on this case?
It's going on 4 years since the time that we first got the case to the time that we submitted her fingerprints to getting her identity.
But giving up isn't an option for investigator Lori Miller. When this all started, when you just looked at the case of Marina Ramos, what was your initial thought?
As you know, we brought you out there to the area where she was left, the way in which she was killed and how she appeared. You know, no human being deserves any of that. And so it just makes you a little bit more determined to try to get her some justice.
In 2023, Miller taking ABC15 to the spot Marina was found over 30 years ago in 1989. The 28-year-old stabbed and left in the middle of the desert.
They surmise it was two suspects, one between 5'10" and 6'2". The other one was between 5'4" and 5'8".
Marina ultimately found by tourists on their way to the Grand Canyon. Can you show us that time again?
Yeah, she was right about in here. Like I said, her head was this way and her feet were this way. What I don't understand is why she was killed here.
Marina, found off Highway 93 about 50 miles from Las Vegas. Decades ago, investigators depended on footprints, stride length, and the little evidence found at the scene.
The great mystery. Once again, daunting responsibility.
That responsibility still weighs on Miller. When we first visited Kingman to cover this case, she and Sergeant John Cole walked us through the process of discovering who Marina was.
It was exciting because you review a case, then you look at all the evidence and you see what you can resubmit to see what can be analyzed.
These cases, you know, we don't have a lot to go on a lot of these cases until we identify the person. You know, that's the main important thing, because after we identify who it is, we can kind of follow up on leads and follow up on family. Maybe they had a direction to go.
Since 1989, she has had no name. Her fingerprints had been attempted. There were items at the scene that were put through to try to identify her via fingerprints, and it was all to no avail. Yeah. So then I get this contact from the NamUs coordinator, and he says, try again, because the FBI is coming up with new techniques, a way of, you know, running it through their database and finding out who she was. So I submitted those fingerprints, and the next day they had a name, which did not turn out to be her real name.
Buried in Mohave County, a Jane Doe, until February 2022, when Marina's fingerprints matched back to a shoplifting case out of Bakersfield, California, but under a different name.
So that really began the adventure, because it was a real adventure to figure out who she really was.
Finally, a cousin started connecting the dots.
I said, do you know a Maria Ortiz? And she said, no, but I have a cousin who hasn't been seen since 1989.
DNA from family was used to confirm the body was Marina's.
From there, when we did tell the family that it was her, And they asked at that time another question which totally blew us away was, where are her two little girls? And it's like, two little girls? We never knew of two little girls. And that began another investigation in and of itself, because come to find out, there was a 2-month-old and a 14-month-old that no one in her family has seen since September of 1989.
After decades in law enforcement, this case is still one of a kind for Miller.
I mean, have you ever had a case that has this many kind of twists that were unexpected, like the missing girls?
No, this came as a total surprise. You know, and it's one thing, obviously, working cold cases that, okay, I have this 1989 case, and she was a Jane Doe. Now I've identified her, but it's been so many years. How am I supposed to find viable evidence and find viable witnesses or suspects? And then on top of that, now I have to find missing little girls. I mean, how many people have that thrown into the mix for them to figure out at the same time? It's difficult enough to do a cold case homicide investigation. Now you're doing a missing persons, hopefully missing persons investigation on top of that.
In 2023, they thought they finally found the key to the first puzzle piece, a man named Fernando.
Fernando in the black SUV.
So how hard is it to try and track down that evidence, track down witnesses and things like that?
Even by today's standards, it's considered desolate. It's just a dirt road over near a windmill farm and a mobile home community. You know, there was no, up at the major intersection, there was no convenience store at the time that would have had cameras. There, in fact, the women who found her had to drive all the way into Kingman to contact anybody because there were no cell phones. I mean, there were no techniques for collecting evidence that there is now.
Family believed Marina had been last seen with the man named Fernando, possibly heading to Ontario with her two little girls, Elizabeth and Jasmin, who were just babies back in 1989.
I doubt that she has been gone for 30-some years, you know. It's crazy. It's something that I don't know, you can't find a word for it. It's like, how, you know? Why?
ABC15 spoke with Marina's sister, Margarita Maldonado, not long after she learned about her sister's murder. Margarita says they had searched for Marina around the Bakersfield area, where her family lived off and on, but now their focus has shifted to finding the two girls.
We just want to find out what happened to the girls, you know?
Yeah.
We want to know where they're at. We want to look for them. They're not by themselves. They have family. I would like to meet them, you know, and it's part of my sister. You know, I would like to, even if they don't want to be around us because they don't know us, but at least if I stand far away and see them, I can see my sister, you know. It's sad.
Yeah.
It hurts.
But Margarita says her sister had a tendency to want independence and was overly trusting.
Think that she was just friendly to maybe the wrong people?
Yes, that's one of the things I told her. I said, be careful who you hang around with. You can't trust everybody.
Oh, she obviously trusted the wrong people. Yes, she, you know, I guess talking to her brothers and her sisters and her cousin, there was a little bit of wanderlust in her, a little bit of adventure. But at the same time, she lived in this small farming community, and she wasn't exposed to the big world and what was lurking in there. And so I think that's what happened. She just came across some people who provided information or had a demeanor that she felt that she was safe, and turned out that she wasn't safe.
You were trying to find, you know, we've heard about Fernando in the black SUV. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned about that Fernando?
Well, actually, we went to the Bakersfield, Lamont area in September and actually spent some time there and talked to other family members and actually located the biological father of the youngest girl, Jasmin. And we were able to interview him, and to his knowledge, he had never had any contact with her after September of 1989. He had gone to Mexico. His mother had died. He's from Mexico. And when he returned, Marina was waiting for him with the two little girls, and that there were two other gentlemen there. She told him that she was going to go to Puerto Rico because there had been a disaster there, and that she was leaving with the two little girls. And he described one of the guys as male Hispanic, brown hair, clean shaven, about 6 foot tall, muscular, as if he had just gotten out of prison. And the other gentleman he couldn't describe because he remained in the car that they all got into what he believed was a red car, and they took off, and he never saw her again. We were able to get his DNA, which we have been able to put into the database. So now if the youngest girl, if her DNA shows up for any reason anywhere, that we have his DNA also, and that based on our interview, we were able to investigate further, and as of now, he has been excluded as a possible suspect in this case.
As for the sketch of Fernando and where Marina was before Mohave County,
I think he's a friend. In fact, we showed that sketch to Jasmin's biological father, and he had never seen him before. So I think that he was a friend who was helping out in some way and just taking her to wherever she wanted to go. And that's, kind of what we're still leaning towards, California, somewhere in Los Angeles or San Bernardino County, because that's where all the leads have taken us so far.
Miller, following each lead, DNA and new testing available has given Miller one more piece to the puzzle.
I don't think that any of these techniques existed back then that are available now.
When we think about this case and how she ended up here in Arizona, I mean, that's really a mystery still.
It remains a mystery. How the only thing that I can think of is that it wouldn't be uncommon to want to go to Las Vegas, to that area. And we are the highway from Las Vegas to Phoenix. So somewhere along the way, leaving Las Vegas and heading to Phoenix is something took place that caused somebody to be so angry and frustrated that they not only killed her, but killed her in such a horrendous way.
But Miller has been able to use new technology to piece together a DNA profile.
Can you talk me through what you were able to get and the testing that had to be done to get that?
We do now have DNA of a male contributor, unidentified, on her body that we know had to be tied to her murder. It's running through the database, but it hasn't come up with a tie to anyone yet. But if we can get DNA from anyone who's a possible suspect, now we have something to compare.
About 7 months later, we sat down again with Miller after the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released the first ever age-progressed images of what Elizabeth and Jasmin might look like today at 37 and 36 years old.
They went to the, extremes to do a rendering of what these young ladies would look like, having nothing really to work with. They had one picture of Elizabeth and no pictures of Jasmin at all. But the family had provided photos of Marina at younger stages of her life, so they were able to use that too. So in effect, it helped us because you can put information out there, but if you actually put a face out there, it helps so much, because somebody could take a look at it and say, hey, that looks like me. I always wondered where I came from. Or someone says, that looks like a friend of mine who wonders where she came from and what her situation was. So it puts it out there for the people to contact either NECMEC or myself.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it, that they had so little to go off of, and they were able to create these really realistic, looking renderings.
They were concerned because we had no pictures of Jasmin, and they were concerned that the pictures kind of look very similar. But again, anything that you put out there helps us, and there is slight discrepancies in how they look, which based on what they had to work with, that they even attempted to work with it in the first place, is astounding.
You guys get creative with following leads, and you really explore every avenue. Is there anything you can tell us about the leads you're working on now?
It was NECMEC again who helped us. We were able to send a couple of items of evidence to the United States Secret Service to process the latent prints. We had not been able at that time to get suitable prints. So obviously they're the United States Secret Service, so they have tools that are probably a little bit more advanced than the normal lab. And they were able to obtain some prints that are suitable for comparison to suspects. As a result of our social outreach, we have obtained information on a couple of possible leads. And so based on those leads, we submitted their information to the Secret Service in the hopes of comparing their prints to these items of evidence, those prints obtained, to see if possibly they will match, and then we have identifiable suspects. At this point, we continue. Anything that I can do as technology advances to have these items analyzed, because they're from 1989, is what I do, because it only helps in these situations. It doesn't hurt to try.
Miller is also working to get a sample of DNA they believe was collected from Elizabeth and Jasmin at birth.
The girls were born in California, in Bakersfield. The California Department of Public Health have what is called PICU or Guthrie cards that are actually heel sticks of their actual DNA. So we've been trying for years to obtain those heel sticks, or at least a portion of them. So if we were able to find one or the other, Jasmin or Elizabeth, we would know which one do we have by the DNA comparison. Do we have Jasmin or do we have Elizabeth, because they're so close in age? So we've continued to have a difficult time, but I think since talking to you, I've been assisted by the FBI in Phoenix, who have been in contact with an investigator in California. And in speaking with him, I guess there was the FBI in San Francisco has been successful in their case in getting the heel stick of their missing person. So that's what we're working on now. We're also putting into their system, I guess California has their own missing and unidentified person system. And so we've been able to work with the FBI in Puerto Rico and get DNA from a half sibling, and we're putting her DNA into that system just in case we've missed something nationally.
The focus for Miller, answers from Marina's family, and possibly a reunion.
Whatever direction this goes in, finding, identifying one of the girls or identifying possibly maybe a suspect, it seems like whichever direction it goes, you could get answers.
To me, family is more important, and I think that's what this unit is our primary goal is to bring some kind of closure to the families. But in this situation, it would be like the miracle of all miracles, the end to the perfect case. I think I look at it that way. What more could you do for a family?
Miller is urging people to take a good look at those new age progression images. If you have a tip on this case or any information, you are asked to call the Mohave County Sheriff's Office. We will continue to cover updates here on Arizona Crime Uncovered. Thank you for watching Arizona Crime Uncovered. We're working to bring awareness to crimes where victims are still awaiting justice and also provide an in-depth look at cases still unfolding. Each episode breaks down a timeline of the case, where it stands now, and if any help is needed from the community. You can watch on ABC15.com, the ABC15 mobile app, Roku, YouTube, or any of your other streaming platforms.